Hello everybody, here is my comic book flip through featuring Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 third printing from February 1985. Now right off the bat, if you've seen my other videos, the first and second printings, you'll notice that the red on this cover is a lot lighter than either the first or the second printing, and I'll show you a first printing next to it so you can get an idea of the difference here between the two. This is a first printing. You'll notice that the red on the cover is much deeper. The red over here on this third printing is very light. It's almost a pinkish color when you look at it side by side. That being said, second printing is also darker. Not as dark as a first printing, but it's still noticeably different from the third printing. Once again, you've got the oversized 7 3/8 wide by 10 7/8. And that was inadvertent. When they had gone to press with this issue, they had wanted to go with the original standard comic book size, but it had inadvertently been printed oversized. And I remember when these came out, they didn't have a bag and board that would fit this size. You actually had to use a magazine bag and board in order to protect these issues, or a magazine mylar. Contains 40 pages. The cover itself was by Kevin Eastman. The entire book, however, was written and drawn by both Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. Kevin and Peter did both the penciling and the inking and toning throughout the entire issue. The lettering was actually done by Kevin. And here you have the inside front cover. One of the main differences obviously here between this and the other printings is that it actually says third printing, February of 1985. Down here below, which is different from the first and second printings, and you can also tell it's because the lettering is done a little bit different here. It's a little lighter compared to the rest of the lettering in this section. It has the Mirage Studios Sharon, Connecticut address. But the remainder of the book, at least as far as the paper, it's printed on newsprint just like the first and second editions. One of the things I always liked about the first Ninja Turtles comics was the artwork itself and the use of a shading system called duotone, which required a special type of paper and produced one of two different tones, a darker tone and a lighter tone, which made toning the issue, adding dimension to it, much easier on the artist. It wasn't used extensively back then in 1984 because the majority of the comics that were coming out, Marvel, DC, were all in color. So in order to find a solution to adding depth to the issue, more detail, they decided to go with the duotone shading system. I thought it looked great. It was one of the sort of the draws for me. It's just this very unique looking style of art. They used the duo shade to actually draw in backgrounds. If you look at some of the panels in here, you can see that they took the duotone rather, solution and used it to, in this case, they actually used it to draw blood. Now I've seen this artwork without the duotone, and I tell you, it makes a huge difference. Okay, and I want to say that in one of the later printings of #1, they went ahead and printed it without the duotone. Can't remember quite why they did that, but it was a much bigger difference. I honestly like the duotone artwork much better, much more. Like I said, it just really adds a unique look to it. And here's one of the panels where that duotone sort of artwork was used right here to draw sort of this faint image of this ninja in the background right here. One of the other things I also liked about the Ninja Turtles comics was the inspiration from Frank Miller. I mean, it is all over the place. And if you followed Frank Miller around the time that this was published, you'll notice right off the bat that the cover itself was inspired by the cover of Ronin #1, which was by Frank Miller. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird were big fans of both Frank Miller and Jack Kirby, and there's a lot of Daredevil going on in this particular comic. In this issue specifically, we've got Master Splinter, who is sort of a inspired by Daredevil's mentor Stick. Okay, even the name Stick, and you've got his name is Splinter, which is a piece of a stick, right? The whole Foot Clan was actually inspired by the Hand Ninja Clan from Daredevil, specifically the Frank Miller run. You've got a lot of the Japanese aspects of it. Frank Miller had done that Wolverine limited series, which took place in Japan. The origin of the Ninja Turtles was sort of inspired by the origin of Daredevil as well. Especially, if you look at this page right here, you've got the scene where the canister strikes the blind man walking across the street, but instead of breaking and leaking out onto the blind man's eyes like it happened in the origin of Daredevil, the can bounces off of his face and bounces over and hits a little bowl carrying 4 turtles that's being held by this little kid right here. And the turtles, of course, fall into the sewer, the canister breaks, and the rest is history. And here we see the sort of the introduction by Master Splinter of each of the Ninja Turtles right here. And over on page 19, you've got what I would consider one of the best images of Raphael ever done. Now this really looks awesome. I've always loved this piece right here. And again, a great use of the duo shade or duotone shading in the back. It makes the whole image just pop. Of course, you've got the introduction of Raphael, who was sort of the rebel of the group, the tough guy, the guy who goes out on his own and stirs up trouble. It was sort of established early on that Raphael was the guy to go out and kind of scout the area. In this case, he was sent to deliver a message to Oroku Saki, the Shredder, via one of his sides right here. And I've got a comment on this pose right here is a really awesome, memorable pose of Raphael when he lands after clashing with one of the Shredder's minions right here. Just wanted to comment that back after the first and second printings were done, there were several counterfeits, both altering subsequent printings of #1, and also I want to say that somebody actually manufactured their own copies of Ninja Turtles #1 and tried to pass it off as a first printing. For the altered second and third printings, what they would do is try to bleach out where it actually says second and third printing on the inside front cover. In the inside front cover of the first printing of Ninja Turtles #1, it didn't state first printing. It just had that Dover, New Hampshire address at the bottom that was carried over into the second printing, changed to the Sharon, Connecticut address in the third printing. The other discernible difference, obviously, if you've seen my video on the first print, was that the inside back cover had an advertisement for Gobbledygook, which was at one point thought to have been the first appearance of the Turtles, and later on it was sort of corrected because the first issue, or at least the original issue of Gobbledygook, because there was a comic book version of Gobbledygook that was subsequently done. The very first one was actually just a Xerox copies that were stapled together, and it really wasn't a true and bona fide comic book in the sense that this is right here. So I think later on, and I want to say it was in 2004, it was officially established, I think by Mirage, that the first appearance, the actual first appearance of the Ninja Turtles was in fact in Ninja Turtles #1 and not Gobbledygook, as it were. Even though they were in there, it like I said, Gobbledygook wasn't really an actual comic book. Once again, just really awesome, gritty artwork. That's, I think, one of the things that first attracted me to this series is just the artwork itself. It's just, you know, it's beautiful. It's kind of raw, but it just works. Obviously, way back when, and a lot of people have pointed this out, that Ninja Turtles started off as quite a violent comic book. It was not a for kids series. You know, Frank Miller and a lot of his works contained a lot of mature themes and lots of violence, lots of blood. And as part of their parody or tribute to Frank Miller and the works that he had done, the violence was carried over into the Ninja Turtle comic, which really was kind of geared towards more of a mature comic book reader, and definitely not for kids. Here we come to the end, page 40. Again, the inside front cover, basically the same as the inside front cover of the second printing of Ninja Turtles #1, where you've got the t-shirt iron-ons, which I thought was pretty cool. Never got a hold of these. I think when I started reading the comics, they weren't available, but $3 for one of these plus 50 cents postage is pretty good. Okay, here is the back cover, and that concludes my comic book flip through of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 third printing. Thanks for watching.